For all the audience tuning in on Instagram, watching this on YouTube right now, this is the Power Day of Podcast. And this show and this podcast is really about, highlighting some of the top performers, entrepreneurs who are overcoming, obstacles and challenges in order to achieve their highest level of success. This could be imposter syndrome, right? This could be the visualization you had of yourself or how you pictured yourself years ago when you weren't where you are. A lot of people see you today.
Yeah.
They don't know you when you were, working in a school district, right? They don't know that person. And so what I want to do and what I want to start out with, and the reason why I want to have you on this podcast is, one, I want to start by sharing the backstory of, how you got to where you are. And then the second thing is the mental and the mentality that you needed to have to get to this position, and even the mental obstacles that you face right now.
Okay.
How you became one of the, you sharpen your skills to become one of the top traders where people are coming to you to learn how to trade, and what toll does that take on you? What toll does trading take on you? And so that's what I want to talk about during this episode today. So without further ado, we have one of the GOATs. We have Teri, Trade and Travel with Teri. So Teri, how's it going?
Good. I feel like I got bamboozled. I didn't know I was have to dig this deep this morning. Okay. Woosah, Lord Jesus.
No, you'll do amazing. And I'm super excited to have you here. Now, Teri, for those that don't know who you are, which there's very few people on the earth, but can you let them know in your own words, who is Teri?
So, hey guys, my name is Teri Ijeoma. I am a full-time trader and I travel all around the world. Like literally, I would characterize myself as a traveler first, and then I afford to travel by trading stocks. And as I was traveling, because I used to work as an assistant principal of an elementary school, but as I was traveling and trading, people started asking me to teach them how to trade. So then not only was I a traveler and a trader, now I was also a teacher. And now I've taught over 7,000 people how to trade stocks to afford the things that are important to them. So in the same way that I afford to travel, other people are affording to quit their jobs, affording to pay for their kids to be in daycare, affording cars, or even just affording peace of mind. Like, because that freedom to know that I can walk out if I want to. Like, I have a lot of nurses and doctors, and I'm even training like 60 dentists right now how to trade. But it's that freedom of, if something were to happen like COVID again, I'll still be okay. So that's who I am.
Wow. And you said a lot, right? You said a lot. You started with the beginning of your journey, but you also ended with, what you're doing today. And so why is it so important for people to learn how to trade and this skill of unlocking freedom? Why is that so important to you?
I think it's a couple things. Like a story that I'll give you is recently my mom had her teeth worked on. And she went and they took some teeth out and then they're about to put some teeth back in. But when she went into the doctor's office, they weren't going to give her anesthesia, or how do you say it?
Anesthesia.
Okay, anesthesia, because they didn't think she could afford it. And so she was sitting in the chair and the lady was like, well, we can numb half of your mouth and not the other half, or do you want to get part of the surgery done? But just assuming that she couldn't afford it because of the way that she looked. And my mom, I had given her some money because of my wealth and trading. I had given her some money to afford whatever she needed. So she was able to look back at it was a nurse, and y'all know my mom is a character. So she said a lot more than just what I'm saying to you. But she looked at the nurse and she was able to be like, no, that's okay. I got it. I would like to get my whole mouth numbed. Yes, I would like to get, I think she needed 4 teeth worked on. Yes, I would like to get all 4 teeth worked on. And the nurse even questioned her, are you sure? Because it's going to cost $700 a tooth. And thinking you can't afford this. And my mom's like, no, I can get all of it done. But the thing is, my mom called me later and she was telling me, she's like, she calls me Tracy. She's like, Tracy, she's like, I know that wealth can't buy you happiness, but it can buy you dignity. She was able to sit in that chair and come back at that nurse and be like, no, give me the best treatment because I can afford it. And I think of all the people who get into situations where they want the best, their healthcare, things that are necessary, their healthcare, their living, their lodging, but they have to make compromises because they can't afford it. So that's why I think it's important to learn how to trade so that if not you, you can afford your family and friends that same dignity.
Yeah, and I think that's so, so important. And, I know your mom, so I know the words that she probably said. And so, and I think, that dignity, we are taught that, money isn't everything, money isn't happiness. And that's not what we're saying here, right? We're saying, hey, you could also use money to leverage when you are in those type of situations. And so I know that was an important moment for you, but I know, it took you a while to be able to say, oh, $700, okay, let's just pay that.
Yeah.
Now, let's start when your transition, like, why did you get into trading? Because I think it wasn't always, that situation wasn't always the case.
Right.
And so take me back to that moment when you had to decide, okay, I'm going to leave wherever I am in order to make that transition and do something else.
And like, so y'all can't hold me to this, but I feel like I just was never good at work. And it was sad because I worked so hard to be good. So like when I first got out of college, I went into consulting and I worked really hard on every case, but I still at the end got like an improvement plan. And then I went to my next job and I worked so hard to be good at it. And it seems like every 3 years I would be like the best person in my boss's eyes. And then year 3 would come along and all of a sudden she'd change her mind. Like, no, you're doing something wrong. And I just like, it just felt like I would be coming up against a brick wall all the time. And I felt that even in my last job as assistant principal, like I wanted everything to go so well. I was so excited because we were building the elementary school, but like my principal would pick at me on little things. I think it was like she saw my joy and was just like, I'm going to kill it. Every little piece of it. And it'd be like, oh, you did this great thing with the students, but you had that one thumbtack that was the wrong color. Oh, the school looks great, except somebody left something in the microwave. Just the little bitty nitpicky things. So I always felt less than. I always felt like I wasn't good enough. And it just sucked. Then fast forward, my friend passed away and he was young and it was a fluke accident. And that too was just like, man, life is too short. Like we don't know how long we're going to be here. And we're sitting here having to, or for me, I was sitting here having to deal with this boss that I hated, this job that I didn't want to go to every day, but feeling stuck because for 10 years I had been in education and nonprofit. I thought that was the only skill I had. So flip to trading, because some people are like probably going to wonder like, well, how did she start trading?
Right. And I think that's important to put context behind where you were, right? You were an assistant principal. You weren't making millions of dollars. You didn't come from this wealthy family. No. You were trying to figure it out. You went to jobs that you thought you were doing well, but there was sort of this discomfort in each of the positions. An instant happened where you had to then decide what type of life you want to live. And this is one of your friends passing away. And so from that moment, why, and I think this is where people are trying to connect the dots now, why'd you decide trading versus getting another job?
Well, one, I needed something that would allow me to travel. So I couldn't be in something that required me to go into an office or required like set hours because I needed to be able to go. Like when my friend passed away, I had a dream that was not asking, but I had died too in a dream. And I got a chance to sit and talk to my mom and grandmother one last time. And I remember the feeling still stays with me. I regretted the fact that I didn't see the rest of the world. Like there was so much of the world that I didn't get to see, and now I was having to go to heaven. And what's sad is I'm sure heaven is beautiful, but I was like, Lord, but I didn't get to see the rest of the earth. So for me, I had to have a thing where I could travel. And trading, you can travel, you can do that anywhere in the world. You can do it from your cell phone, you can be on the go. And then I'm actually good at it. Like I truly enjoy looking at companies. Like to me, that's my what's the football game? Fantasy football?
Yeah.
Like to me, trading is my fantasy football. I'm looking at what's happening with the companies. I got all the stats. I know it, and it's just fun. So that's why I chose trading. And I had learned it. Like I had been trading since 2010 when the housing market fell. So for me, it was something I had been doing as a hobby. Now I just needed it to be my full-time thing.
So when you decided at that moment you were going to leave your job and do trading full-time, were you afraid? Did you have it's sort of imposter syndrome? Like, did you think you could do it, or was there sort of some fear that what if it doesn't work out?
Oh, there was a ton of fear. Like, there's like, so my story of actually leaving the job is a bit of a God story,
Mm.
because in October is when my friend passed away, and the rest of the school year, and actually that's when I had prayed about, okay, trading and traveling. And the rest of the school year, I backpedaled because I was like, oh, this is a safe job. This is like good money. My mom was talking about the insurance. And then I was mad that like all the work I put in, somebody else was going to come behind me and get all the accolades for it. Like, dang, that principal ain't going to say nothing about her thumbtacks because she, everything's worked out fine. So there was a lot of fear to actually leave the job. And then on top of that, like trading is risky. Like, and there were times where I wasn't making a lot of money and my trading account wasn't huge. So I had moved my 401ks and all my retirements over. And like I had times where I had lost. And so it was definitely like a step of faith because, well, what if I get out here, make a trade and I lose everything?
So despite the fear that you were experiencing, you still decided to make that step, make that leap and say, you know what? I'm doing it while I'm at my job. If I wanted to pursue this full time, these are the things I may have to cut back on, or these are the hours I may have to focus more on in this craft if I want to ever be able to travel and do this full time.
Yeah.
Now, do you ever run into, so you're not telling people to just leave their job today to start trading full time. What are you telling those people who are at work thinking, okay, well, let me just leave and be like Teri?
Yeah, I practiced for a year. So when I decided, okay, this is something I want to do in October, I started taking classes. I started practicing every day until I could get to $300 a day, because that's what I needed to replace my income as an assistant principal.
Right.
So, and that's another thing. People always think you got to make millions to be successful in trading. That's not true. For me, I could have made $100 a day and still paid my bills and been successful. And there was even like a reporter, she had asked me, she was like, well, you had to have become a millionaire before you started teaching. And I was like, no, that's not success in trading. Success for me anyway in trading was I needed enough to just replace my income. So $60,000 a year is like, whoa, I did it.
Because how much were you making, if you don't mind sharing, as an assistant principal at that time?
Yeah, it was $65,000, but the $5,000 was a bonus. It wasn't even guaranteed. So it was $60,000. And after taxes, that was $4,000 a month. So
Right.
all I needed was $4,000 a month, and trading has been a success.
Yep. And I think people don't realize it's not about hitting the home run. It's not about striking gold. Like when you first start, and the same thing I did when my job is, I looked at what's the minimum I need to live and have an okay lifestyle. And it wasn't $15,000 a month. It was $4,700. That's all I needed to make in my side income, side hustle, for me to think it was a success.
Yeah.
Because, success depends on, who and how people view it. And to me, it was, okay, if I can make $4,700, and at that time, that was so much because it wasn't being paid from a job. I had to go out there and get it. If I can make $4,700, then I'd have success. Now, when you decided you wanted to transition and do this trading full time, what was the conversation like with the people around you? Your mom, who saw this job as a security, right? What was the conversation like when you were telling people, I'm going to trade and travel? Because who did you point to that did this? Was there anyone that you were looking at? And so what was that like?
I didn't have any mentors that like had done it before me. However, at one of the places where I had gone to school to like learn how to trade, there was a guy who had been trading for 30 years.
Wow.
And a couple of things he told me was, he said, Teri, you got to be careful that you don't overtrade because it'll take your joy of trading away. And so that was one thing that has always stayed with me. Like, there are things where trading becomes a job too. And if you're always trading and always, trying to make the next buck, then you're not going to enjoy it either. So whether you leave your job and then start trading, but if you don't enjoy trading, then it's not going to be fun. So that was one thing he told me. And then another thing he told me was the whole year thing. But he told me another thing, that my goal was a good goal. I had 30,000 that I was trading with, and I was trying to make $300 on a regular basis. So a 1% return. He told me, he's like, I think that you'll be successful because you have realistic goals. What a lot of people come in and do, and they say, oh, I want to make $10,000 a day, or I want to make, $1 million a day, and they're trading with 30,000. That's not realistic. Realistic is, let me consistently make 1%. And if I can do that, then I can be okay. So that was a couple of things he said. And then in terms of like friendships, on when I was making this move, so I actually have two friends. Two friends. I'm trying to think through, like, if they want me to say their names on here or not. But I have two friends, and I remember, like, I was trying to make this decision of whether to leave the job or not. So I invited them to lunch, and I showed them my notebook, and I was like, look, I need you guys to choose what I do. So the choices were stay at my job or leave. And then both of them said, well, actually, I told them, let me tell you it was 4 things. And then I had both of them circle which one an initial. And then I still questioned. But anyway, it was stay at the job or leave, get an apartment or release my lease, start traveling or stay in Dallas. And what was the other one? And there was one more big decision that I had been thinking about. So then I took that notebook, I gave it to each of them, told them to circle, and both of them circled leave job, start traveling, and don't get the lease. And I was like, y'all tripping, I ain't. But yeah.
Okay.
And so the friends were Alex and Jessica, both of them.
Okay. Do they tell you now, like,
They're
look,
so proud.
Look at what, I think they saw you before you saw yourself, right? They were like, Teri, you have all this potential.
Yeah.
Like they probably talk about you all the time, and then here you are. And it's always hard when people are, even this is how I see you as this person. And then when you come with me a decision, I'm like, Teri, you got problems? Like, you got these decisions you got to make. Like, it should be easy for you because you've been able to navigate through so much. And so is there any suggestions or tips you would give someone who's going through and having to make these hard decisions that you might had to learn over these last few years?
So I'm a faith-based person. So I think faith is the substance of things unseen, right? The evidence of things unheard, like that you haven't done yet. And so sometimes you just have to step out on faith and know that, like, you're not going to know everything. When I stepped out of the job, I literally was thinking about just traveling for me. I had no idea that I would start a school, that I would be teaching people. Like, none of this was in the plan. I just wanted to be out the school and trade and travel for myself. But everything was lining up to where the Lord even was just saying, like, go. So sometimes you just got to step out on faith. Another thing I would say is, like, follow your passion. Like, you may not know the end goal, but just take one step at a time and start doing like a little bit, and then it'll start leading into these bigger things. And
I think sometimes people think it's the big thing that comes first, right? They think that first step is like the top of the step. It's like, no, the first step is the bottom of the steps, and you have to keep climbing up.
Yeah.
And so that's really important that you mention that, because it's not a leap. Right. It's a leap of faith, but it's really a small step of faith.
It is. Like, I even think about when people first started asking me to teach them how to trade, I said, fine, I'll do one class. And it was a live class. And I thought that would be it. Like, I'm going to do this one live class. Then I did the class, and I saw in there that some people in different cities were asking me to teach them. So then it was like, well, I'll make it online so that you guys can learn. Then people, like, I did a first cohort. I had put some things together for 2 people who originally signed up, and then did a cohort. And then it was, oh, wow, now 35 people want to learn. But it just slowly, step by step, went forward. And it was because people were asking me for something, and I just delivered what they were asking for. So some people, I feel like they get into like trading businesses, and they think that they got to have it all figured out up front. And it's not like that. Whatever people are asking you for, try that first.
Yep.
And then once that happens, see what happens next.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad you said that. You didn't have this grand plan of saying, in the beginning, it was just about you. How do I travel and trade? Like, that's all you were trying to do. People saw you living this lifestyle and they said, wait a second, how are you doing that? Right? Like, teach me. And you say, you know what? Okay, I'll do one live class. Okay, you got me.
One
live class.
That's it. Ain't nobody asking me no more questions. Yeah.
Now, 7,000 students later, what's that experience been like when you're able to now teach other people and seeing them, traveling and trading? What's that? Did you ever think you'd be able to teach 7,000 students?
And pause. Zach, would you mind turning the volume down on my phone? Because I want to make sure y'all can hear. Can y'all hear on Instagram? Is the volume okay?
Can y'all hear on Instagram?
Y'all put an emoji in there if you can hear us. We just want to make sure that y'all can hear. I just want to make sure there's no echo for y'all. Okay,
yes.
Good.
Okay, good.
Okay,
I need
good.
Glasses out here. I'm like staring.
Yes, volume is good. Yes, okay, perfect. All right, just wanted to make sure y'all didn't have any issues. So ask me the question again.
Yes. So the question was, did you ever think that through being able to trade and travel for yourself and being able to teach that first class, and now 7,000 students later, so many classes later, did you think that this is where it would be? You'd be able to build this business and help 7,000 students?
No. So it's back to the original thing of, I just wanted to trade and travel for myself. So did I think that it would get this big? I didn't even think this would be a thing. Like, I thought that I'd be a millionaire from just trading. I thought that I would be able to do my own thing and be obscure in the background. The other day I went into a conference and I thought I was in disguise because I had my hair up in a poof. And I sat in the back and I was like, oh, no one's going to know who I am. First person in front of me turns around and is like, hey, Teri, how you doing? Did I think that was going to happen? No, I didn't think any of this was going to happen. But I will say there was like a couple years ago, there was some women just randomly that I had met that kind of prophesied over me. And they said, you're going to be a really wealthy woman. And I remember it happened 3 different times. People that I didn't know, just all of a sudden, you're really wealthy. You're rich. At this time, I wasn't. I didn't have much in my account. I was trying to figure out if trading was even for me because, you make some, you lose some, and I'm just trying to figure it out. But I received it. I said, okay, well, if the Lord is telling you that, okay. I told you I'm a spiritual person, so I just received that. And now walking into it, I don't feel foreign here. This doesn't feel like a foreign place. I feel like this is where I was supposed to be.
The one thing that I really, admire and enjoy about you is that you don't have to do that. You don't have to teach people how to trade. That's abundance mentality. You're good. You were already living your best life, traveling and trading and making money. So I think a lot of people get into this because it's a way for them to make money. Oh, let me teach other people really quickly. No. You've been doing this for such a long time. Yeah. You were already making money. And this wasn't something you wanted to do. It's something that you're like, okay, well, if y'all want to learn so bad, I'll teach you what I know. Yeah. And it sort of build on from there. And so what are some of the stories now where you went into that conference you're running into students that you've taught? What are they saying to you when they do see you in person?
Yeah. Honestly, I'm looking at you and you are you're the quintessential evidence of my course. I remember when you were like, you know what, Teri, I think I'm just going to quit. I'm going to just trade. I think I can make $1 million a year from just trading. And I'm like, wait, what? Y'all, I called Abu one day. I was just checking on him. I was like, how's trading going? He's in my trading travel class. I'm like, how's trading going? He's like, yeah, I made $100,000 last month. What?
Right.
So like you were the evidence, and I'm seeing so many other people and their lives changed. So that has brought me joy. I think to your earlier question though of like just my mental space, I think there's always that struggle for me, and I call it like the beach.
Mm.
I desire to be on a beach somewhere drinking Kool-Aid and reading a book. That's where my fleshly mental self wants to be at all times. Running a course and teaching 7,000 students does not always allow me to be on the beach. Actually, it rarely allows me to be on the beach. So I've had to figure out like, is my passion for helping people a higher priority right now? Or is my just internal desires a higher priority? And that's kind of like a consistent battle.
And what's the thought process behind that? Because I know you and I talk about this all the time offline. So what's your thought process around that?
I think...
Where are you leaning? Because I know you spend a lot of time in your business and in serving other people and putting other people first. And I never ever hear about Teri.
Right. I think at this time, I've had to come to terms with serving people right now is a higher priority. But it doesn't come without reward. Like I'm serving people, and then I'm also blessed financially. I'm blessed spiritually. Like I see other people winning. Like right now, I think that I'm in like an obedient stage. It may not be like what I tell myself mentally that I want, but I'm getting blessed in my obedience. And I feel like there's quite a few, y'all, when I say spiritual, I'm also a Bible person. Like there's very few stories in the Bible where the person in the story wanted to do what God asked him to do. Like Abraham had to leave all of his family and go to a whole new place. He didn't want to leave. Like David and had to go fight Goliath. That wasn't his first choice. Like, let me go fight, like, no, but it happened because this is what God asked. And I think in this season of my life, I'm in like an obedient stage, and it's definitely, I'm seeing the results of it. I'm seeing all the people's lives change. I'm seeing, like more and more people come into the course. I'm seeing more people just like with positivity and inspiration. So like, I think, and I had to mentally make this switch, because otherwise I'm gonna still be in frustration and in conflict. In this season, I'm prioritizing work and other people.
Now, the adverse effect, how does that affect other areas of your life when you do make this decision, this choice of, okay, I'm doing this, I'm prioritizing this for this moment? How is that affecting other areas of your life, things that you may have noticed or noticing?
You know what? If you had asked me that last week, I would have said all these things that I had to sacrifice. But at the same time, I think now I'm seeing it as, and again, like I think this is just doing the work of like really figuring out yourself. Now I'm actually seeing that I'm not having to sacrifice. Like I'm all the areas that I thought I was sacrificing, like relationships. Oh man, I don't have a boyfriend. But actually the person that I am now, when I do meet someone, is going to be that relationship is going to be so much more fruitful, because I now know who I am, and I'm at a different level, and I'm getting introduced to all these different people. So now there's like a whole new caliber of folks. Abu told me about swinging this microphone. Let me switch hands. But now there's a whole new caliber of people I'm meeting. So the relationships, like the people in terms of relationships, maybe not. Like I foresee that there will be a future great husband in the picture, but like just the friendships that I'm cultivating, like they're so rich and strong and good. Like even now, the fact that you guys just fly down to Puerto Rico.
Right.
Like back in the day, I wouldn't have been able to have friends that just fly out.
Correct. I wouldn't have been able to fly out.
Right.
And I think that's hard, because as entrepreneurs and those listening in, or as someone that's really career focused, you have this internal battle of, how should I be spending my time? People always say, well, you prioritize the things that are important. And it's kind of different seasons call for different things. You may be going through something that's challenging, or mentally, or, taking care of family, etc. And so this is always the hardest thing, even for me. And that's why I always bounce these ideas off of people like you, because I'm like, how is Teri holding it all together? Like, what are the things Teri decided that's making her live like this fuller life? Because I think that's what we're all striving to do. It's extremely hard to pick something, to prioritize things. But why do you feel like, and really quickly, how do you, when you look on Instagram and you see your other peers, maybe, in relationships, or you see your other peers, cultivating the things that you're currently not cultivating, do you ever compare yourself?
I do it. I think it's unintentional. Because it's not that I go in looking at the picture like, man, I'm better than that, but I think this, after you see lots and lots of pictures of the same thing, then you start feeling like you're missing out. And that itself is just like a comparison thing. You're not missing out. Like, for example, my mom was here in Puerto Rico with me, and then we saw some pictures of my other family all together. And so she said this statement of like, well, man, why am I always in the wrong place? Because she wasn't with the family. But then I was like, but mommy, you're in Puerto Rico in paradise. Like, look out. Like, you're in this beautiful place. Like, y'all see the picture. Like, you're in this beautiful place with, like, this is where other people want to be. But you know what? I actually was talking to a therapist recently, and she said what it is oftentimes the thing that we have a weakness in, we identify that in somebody else, and they may have a different weakness, but because they have the thing that we're weak in all together, we say, oh, well, they got it all together. Just because we see in them, they're not struggling with that one weakness. But they would then say, well, but no, I'm weak in this other area. And they look at somebody else and say, oh, well, they're not struggling in that weakness, so they got it all together. So we just got to realize that actually, just because we're lacking one thing doesn't mean that that other person is any better or doing any better. Like, we're okay by ourselves. Like, we're both okay.
Yeah, and Teri preaching today. It ain't Sunday, but Teri is preaching today, and that's absolutely right. And I know a lot of people are probably listening to this right now and resonating with that, because they're like, wow, like, how does she know? Like, this is literally what I'm going through. And I think that's the importance of having peers and people that are a few steps ahead of you, where you're able to ask them these types of questions. That's why it's important when you decide you want to trade, you find someone who's already done it, someone who's a few steps ahead of you. Where does mentorship come in a place where someone who is trying to learn how to trade, or where you are trying to get to that next level, how does mentorship look like for you now?
For me now, So I've actually also, there's so many things that like I figured out myself within the last few weeks. Another thing that I realized is I'm at a place where I need to perfect what I know instead of continuing to seek out new things. That sounds real bad. But the thought was I always felt like I wasn't there yet. So I would keep rushing and rushing and rushing, trying to get to the next level, to the next level. But in this season, the thought is actually you're at the top. Just continue to perfect what you know. And so I don't need to look outside of myself right now for another mentor, because I actually know quite a bit. I actually am the person now that can start mentoring other people.
Right.
That being said, after like probably in a few weeks, I probably will be looking for somebody else. But like, I do think that's important. I feel like sometimes we're always looking for somebody else outside of us, thinking that they're not, like, we don't have it together. But oftentimes you might actually have it. You just need to perfect what you know. From there though, then as a trader, like, I have made so many mistakes. I can help other people not make those mistakes. And I think that's the benefit of having a mentor. Like, even when I was first learning, I would do something well, and then I would go to him and he'd say, well, have you also looked at this thing? And then it would just shift my whole way of looking. So I think that's the importance of a mentor. You have some amazing mentors. So
no,
like, your mentor's always telling you stuff that's good.
No, and I think that's, really important to have that mentorship, but also to know that you are enough, and you are capable, more than capable, of figuring things out depending on where you are in your life right now. And also realizing, there may be, another season or in a few days or weeks where you're like, you know what, I actually need guidance. And all of that is okay, right? It's okay to look within. It's okay to seek out people who are steps ahead of you. And I think that's why your program, Trade and Travel, is really popular, right? Because there are people that are seeing you, and you are very transparent about your trades. You're very transparent about, hey, I need to check my emotions sometimes, because that was one of my biggest weakness in trading.
Yeah.
And so what are some advice or tips that you have for someone looking to trade? Maybe this is the first time they're hearing about Trade and Travel. And Teri, what sort of the things you want them to think about if they're saying, you know what, I want to get into trading, or I hear trading is hard. Like, how can I get started?
And I'm like, it's hard to me like that. I have some bullet points of this that I think y'all just go check out itradeandtravel.com. There's a free webinar there, and I talk through some bullet points. But because it's you, I'm going to tell you some things that are outside the box that I really don't usually share. But one of those tips is it does take money to start trading. And I don't care who tells you that you can just start investing with a little bit of money. You need to have at least $2,000 to start. And like even myself, like this is like, I know we talk a lot about mental health, so I just want to also speak to the entrepreneurs. In the beginning of my business, I felt like I needed to have an entry point for everybody. So I would kind of downplay what was needed. And I would say, well, you can start with, as little as $20. You could start, and that is true. You can open an account with $500, but to invest money and to make consistent money, you need to start with some money. I say that, and y'all can put all the crazy comments in the world in there, but it's the truth. If you're going to be a trader, you need to start with at least $2,000, and then I think your goal should be 1% of that cash amount on a regular basis. And it doesn't even have to be daily. I had a student that was beating herself up because she keeps making $200 a day and she wants to make $1,000.
Right.
I was so pissed off. I was like, are you serious? You are making good money, but because it's not, what you thought in your head, then you're thinking you're doing something wrong. So you need money, but try to go for 1% on a regular basis. It doesn't even have to be daily. You also need a plan. Like I feel like I'm like in like, this is teacher mode, but you also need a plan. Don't just jump out there because you opened a Robinhood account and feel like you know how to trade. That ain't true.
Right. Listen.
Like, I need you to get under some education, and then I need you to stick with that educator's plan for a little while. The hopping from YouTube to YouTube video and feeling like, oh, I look at him and her, and then I'm going to learn how to trade. No, find one. Find one of those people on YouTube. Find me, Trade and Travel, and then follow my whole trading plan. Get really good with that, become an expert, and then you can move on. Like I was saying, once you've figured out Trade and Travel, you groom that, become an expert at it, and then you go to the next thing. All right, now let me add in some leaps, or let me add in some different option plays, or whatever it is. But the hopping from YouTube to YouTube and thinking you're gonna get it, that's not it. Okay.
Yeah, and I think that, wait, did you have another tip?
I could go on and on, so you keep going.
No, and I think that's important. And the reason what drew me into your program, and the reason why I enrolled in your program, was because there was a plan. I'm a person that I need a plan when I am trying to learn something new. I need, okay, well, what are the steps? Okay, how many weeks is this over? What are the big key items that I'm learning here that I need to really focus on? And I think you do a really good job, whether it's your background. It reminds me back when, I was in school, there are certain teachers that for hard subjects, they make it memorable. They come up with songs, the 50 states, right? They come up with things where you remembered it. And I think that's what you do really, really well, is that you teach it really well where it's digestible. And that's different. You're taking something that people think is complex and there's all these terminologies around it. And you're saying, think about it this way.
Yeah.
Right? Think about the stairs, right? Think about it this way. And if you could think about it this way, then it's more digestible. Then the light bulb goes off and you're like, oh my God, yeah, I knew that. Right? Yeah, I should have did that and so forth. So I think it's really important. So again, I've taken Teri's program a few years back, and I do trade. And the reason why, and the next subject I want to get into, is I remember at that time I had $1 million in my savings account. And at the end of the year,
keyword, he had it in his savings account. I had a 0.0%.
I had $1 million in my savings account. And at the end of the year, I remember Bank of America, I probably made it was less than $30 at the end of the year. So 12 months, I made less than $30.
On $1 million.
On $1 million. That's when I had that conversation with you. You were like, what are you doing with your money? And I said, well, let me tell you something. I made less than $30 and you was looking at me sideways like you are now. And so for people, and this is what we start talking about, wealth building, people with money. There's so many influencers that are making a lot of money. I remember talking like Maddie, right? Yeah. Maddie James. And so there's so many people making money online, but they don't really know what to do with it. And a lot of times it goes into their savings, or they don't have a plan. They go to download Robinhood, they go to YouTube, and they start losing a lot of money. And so people with jobs are making income. Entrepreneurs, influencers are making income. How should they start thinking about their money now that they're making income? Where should that capital be deployed, and why is now trading really important for them to understand?
I think the first thing to do is think through what are the trade-offs? What's the opportunity cost of not investing it? And what are you expected to get in terms of interest from different vehicles? Because trading may be one vehicle, but there's several different ones, right? So, first you think, okay, I could put this in a savings account. That makes an interest of 0.00001%. Abu actually told me he made 3 cents on his $1 million back in the day. So that's an option. You could do that. Side out to you too if you choose that. You could do, you could just put it into an index fund. And oftentimes the average return is 8 to 10%. So that's something you could just open an account, put it into something that mirrors the S&P and have a 8 to 10% return. That's still good. And the first step in my course is opening an account and then looking at some of those exchange traded funds that can follow the indexes, right? So that's possible. Then you look at, okay, well, maybe what about real estate? What's the return on that? You might get 20% return on real estate, and some of my real estate friends can correct me here. However, it's going to take you 3-4 years to see that return, because you have the deposit and then you got to have the rent come in, or even if you flip it, it may just take you some time and effort. So that's it, but it's an option. Then you get to my class and trading. Well, we're trying to make 1% each trading day. So on 20 trading days in a month, that's 20% a month. And then you can scale that back and say, well, there might be some days where this month I don't trade as often, or maybe I do some swing trades. So what if you even just dial that back to 10% return a month? That's still amazing. And I was talking to somebody on the plane, an older gentleman. He had retired, lives in Florida. We were talking in first class, and I just happened to ask what he does. And he turned and asked what I do. And he was like, Teri, honestly, if I just make 1% return a few times a month, that's still great, because at the end of the year, I've made 30% return. That's still better than all the other investments. And all I did was work a few days a month. So that's when you start thinking about what is your life? What do you want your life to look like, and which vehicle will get me there? And then you come to trading because we're the best.
Right. Go to tradingtravel.com. But I'm just playing. And I think that's really important to understand, because I used to work, at PwC, Big Four Consulting. I would make $65,000, but I didn't know what to do with that money. I come from a household where money wasn't talked about. We were so poor that money was not talked about. It was the last thing we talked about. Mm-hmm. And so I had to learn a lot of this on the fly. I didn't learn it in university. I didn't learn it in high school. I learned it on the fly. And so when you start making income, and anyone can make income, right? You make income by getting a job. You make income by selling your digital products. You make income by selling your courses or your e-commerce products. But once you get that income, that's what we're talking about now. What do you do with that income? Right? That's the most important. That's what I don't see a lot of people doing. All their capital, like me, is in their savings account. And a lot of times it's a mentality because we grew up a certain way. We're like, oh, I don't want to lose it.
Right.
So what's your mentality and your relationship with money? How has that been like now that, you're on the other side and you have more money than maybe you did 10 years ago or 5 years ago?
Yeah. I'm still extra frugal. Like, I still ride and coach on airplanes. I still, look for the cheapest way to do stuff, even though like I can totally afford it. I still get mad when the waiter overcharges me like $3. Yes, you are going to get that receipt back. And yes, it's going to get corrected. But I think on this side note, I figured out what I actually do think is important. So for me, when I travel, I now want to luxury travel. So before, I would have been okay trying to find a hostel or the cheapest thing to get me to Venice. Now, if I'm in Venice, I'm going to get something with like a beautiful view, and I'm going to make sure that I have a chef, and it's about experiences. So that has changed, and I'm okay to splurge on experiences. I do think, though, what helps is having a budget. Even as multimillionaire, like, I need to know where my cap is to still be okay. So even if it's okay, you have $100,000 budget for travel, I'm just okay. Yeah, that's my budget.
Right.
If it was like, you're not gonna be over here and pretend like that ain't your budget, Teri. Right. So, but even if I have like a big budget, I know that I can spend up to there, and it gives me a peace of mind. Versus if I was just like money coming out all the time, then it makes me feel some kind of way.
Yeah. And I think this is something that I'm learning. Even when you have money, no matter if you have $100 or $100,000, it's really important to have a budget, right? It's important that budgets aren't just for people who can't afford something, right? And budgets aren't just for people who, might have a lot of money. Budgets are just really important tool to let you know what your boundaries are a little bit, like, okay, yeah, the budget may look different as you make more income, as you are trading, right? As you have more disposable capital, but where is that money going, right? And then if I have vices, right? Your vice is traveling. You want to travel. How did you term it? You said luxury travel.
Yeah.
And so therefore you're willing to spend more on those vices, but you've already budgeted that out. And so I tell my friends all the time, and they're like, "Abu, what do you mean you have a budget? And I'm like, no, but you need to have these budgets. And once you hit it, it's like anything else. Yeah, do I have money that I could go in the other? Yeah, but that's not the point. The point is that capital has already been accounted for, and this was my budget, so I have to stay within this boundary for this month, right? And so I think that's really important. Is there anything else that you learned about money along the way, or your relationship with money has changed that's either helped you or something you were doing that's hurted you in the past?
I think one thing that's hurt me that I'm trying to correct for is being stingy with hiring because I was stingy with money. Like, I could just do this myself. I don't need to spend $10,000 on that, or, in order for them to do publicity or whatever, it's going to cost $25,000. Nah, that's too much. Just thinking through all these bills and feeling like I can't believe that I would even have to pay that. But at the same time, if I really want my business to go forward, I've gotta spend and invest money like that. Even with you, like I would not do Facebook ads for the longest, and even now I get like, I can't believe I gotta spend all this money on Facebook. But at the same time, if you want your business to increase, you gotta be willing to invest. Like it's an investment no matter what.
Correct. And I think that's really, really powerful. Even you saying that with, the amount of money and things you've been able to make, like investing in yourself is at every stage. It's at every stage. It's just not in the beginning. It's just not in the middle when you start making some money and now you're like hesitant.
Yeah.
You ever double dutch? You're like, oh, no, you have to go in. You have to continue investing yourself no matter what stage you are in your business. And I think that's really, really important to notice. Now, in the beginning, when we first started talking, you talked about how your mom was at this hospital and you said, you know what, we could afford it. Right. So now where, Trade and Travel with Teri, that's what you go by,
That's what he calls me. Like, no matter what, we'll be in random places. It's never just Teri. Like, I'll call him on the phone, Trade and Travel with Teri.
Listen, I got to let people know, I got to be consistent with the branding. Now with where you are and you're able to afford, more things, where has that brought you mentally? Is that like do you see yourself, do you see your relationship with money and the way people treat you? Has it changed you? Did you need a change for you to really take advantage of where you are in the space? So here's an example. With me specifically, I had to realize if I didn't change, if I was still the same person I was, and I'd lose my sanity with money. And it wasn't about me, but it was about how other people would treat me.
Yeah.
The phone calls asking about money, the requests, the emails, the DMs, no matter where you were, the ask was always around money and somehow. So has that ever happened to you? And how did you learn or grow through that phase?
I think there's like two things. One, I'm a bit dissociated from my money. Like usually when it comes in, it'll go into a different account and I don't see that account. So to me, oh, cool. Okay. For me, and pause, y'all. So exciting. They're here.
Hey,
yeah.
We'll wrap
okay.
up.
We have like, I told y'all, like I have like 30 people coming to my house.
Right.
Every day it's going to get bigger, but it's just like 12, but it's a lot of people. Okay, so real quick, wrap up on this subject. One, I can't remember what I was talking about with the money and how I was feeling.
Yep. So I asked you about.
I dissociate.
Yep.
So I don't associate with it. So even though yes, I am part of the 1%, I'm doing super well. To me, it's over there and I'm over here. So, and I think I like that because some people kind of wear armor, like money, like their badge of armor, like I'm above you because I have whatever. I mean, it's over there and I'm over here. But I do think one thing that I do often have to remind myself when I'm thinking of my time now, though, is yeah, the money's over there, but Teri, your time is now worth what your money can create. So like last month, just on interest alone, my money made $75,000. So I don't have to do anything. And I often have to remind myself that like, Teri, you still are, hustling like you are broke. But now for every minute that you choose to spend somewhere, like that could have been literally thousands of dollars. So I am learning how to value myself more because like literally that my time is worth more.
Yeah, and I'm glad you shared that, and thank you for sharing details around numbers, around what you were making, around your mentality at every stage. And this has been an amazing conversation, and we could literally sit here and talk all day because it's literally what we talk about outside of the cameras and et cetera, the recordings. But we are in Puerto Rico. And I'm super grateful for you giving me some time today to jump on the podcast. Teri, thank you so much for joining. Where do people find you? How do people get in touch with you?
Oh my gosh. So I'm going to tell you guys, just because y'all are on here, it officially launches tomorrow. I am doing a documentary series and I'm doing a 5-city tour. So definitely stay connected to me on Instagram at Trade and Travel or even here on my Teri Ijeoma page. And then I told you guys earlier to get a free webinar, you can go to tradeandtravel.com and learn how I teach people to make $1,000 in a day.
Awesome. Thank you everyone for tuning in. This has been an episode of a lot of gems and getting to see the other side of Teri as well. So thank you all for listening to this episode. Make sure to leave us a review. Make sure to go check out tradeandtravel.com, and I will see you all during the next episode. All right. And that's a wrap.
Thank y'all.